Hello, church. Here we are, Daniel chapter 8, 9, and 10 today. And can I just very quickly say that if you have a really good study Bible, can I encourage you from chapters about 7 through 12 in Daniel, there is so much stuff in here that has very sharp, accurate, prophetic fulfillment that it would be a shame, it's almost a shame we can't get into it in further detail, but just spend time reading through there and land that on the amazing wonder of how accurately God speaks. Like, it's just absolutely incredible how some of these prophecies take hundreds of years to fulfill. And when we're talking about how the specific things come to fruition that God has foretold, it's just mind-blowing. So take the time as you read this. If you've got a good study Bible, go through all those notes. It'll be worth it, and you will be amazed. In chapter 8, what I want us to land on here, good reminder when we feel that God is impressing upon us something that we should pray. Maybe we could call that prophetically or whatever. He gives us a picture or a vision or a dream. We should never skip the step of inquiring from the Lord what we should do with that. If you look at in chapter 8, verse 26 and 27, Daniel got a vision from the Lord that he was specifically then told, but seal it up. It's for something in the future. Then in verse 27, we can see that he got up, but it was beyond understanding. He just could not grasp it. Church, sometimes God reveals things to us that with the intention that we will just pray into it and trust that he will bring fulfillment to it. Our part in it is not to bring the fulfillment. That's God's part. Our part is just to pray and take the necessary steps of obedience that God instructs us to take. So when we get a vision or a dream or something that we feel God wants us to share, it very well may be that he does want us to share it. But don't ever skip the step of asking him, Lord, what should I do with the word I feel you've given me? And then, once we've done that, proceed accordingly. All right, chapter 9. What I want us to see here in verses 2 and 3 is Daniel's recognition of a prophetic word Jeremiah gave back in chapter 25 of Jeremiah that foretold that the people would be held captive for 70 years. And by the revelation of the Lord, Daniel realizes, aha, it's here. We've come to the place where God is now going to set his people free. And what does Daniel do? Does he just sit back and just figure, God's got it. He's just going to fulfill his word? Nope. What does Daniel do? He prays. And this is to me one of the most amazing gifts, church, that God has given us, in that even though he needs nothing from us and would not need to include us in his plan, because he desires relationship, he does. And he allows Daniel to partner with him, as it were, and pray into being, pray in the Spirit into being what God's prophetic will was all along. And that is an amazing thing. There's an application for us. If we look later in the chapter, kind of starting from verse 20 till the end, we can see this kind of a little bit mysterious 77s that Daniel's talking about here. And what can we see from that? Well, if we look down to about verse 25, we can start to see that the first group of sevens, if you will, this is groups of 7 years, okay? So 7 sevens is like 49 years. Okay, so now we can see that this is the time it took to rebuild Jerusalem. And then there's another group of 62 sevens, or 434 years. And that would have been the time, like it says there, that the anointed one is cut off. Meaning that from this time, there would be 434 years until Jesus would be killed. If you look back in the dating of all of this, it is remarkable. It is like accurate within as close as we can measure it over that amount of time, how accurate this word was. And so it is incredible. But then we can also see that there is a gap. So now we've got 69 of the 77s covered, but now we can see that there is a gap of time that we don't really know how much time that is. It's undetermined. Okay? And so we know that there is another one group of sevens coming, meaning 7 years. And we don't know when that will be. We understand it to be from Revelation. We understand it to potentially be and likely refer to the tribulation period at the end, but we don't know. What should our response be? The same as that of Daniel. As we see those days approaching, we should be intentional in prayer and praying in the Spirit, partnering with the Lord and allowing him to lead our prayers so that as those days approach, we are praying into being, if you will, what God's will is for us. Even though he has predetermined all those things, we should pray and not just sit back and relax. And so a good thing to land on here would be to ask the Lord, Lord, as the end draws near, help me to be in prayer. All right? And then in chapter 10, what I want us to see here is the incredible necessity for us to be putting into practice, like Daniel did, the principle of what Jesus taught in Luke chapter 18, where he told the parable of the woman and the judge. And he told that parable, like verse 1 says, so that we would always pray and never give up. What do we see Daniel doing here? We see Daniel always praying and never giving up. He is not aware of the spiritual battle that's going on in the background that gets revealed later on in the chapter. But he does know, I am called to pray, and I am going to commit myself to praying until my breakthrough comes. And so, church, don't miss this. There will be things happening at times in our prayer time that we are possibly unaware of. Even in terms of why our prayers are delayed in being answered, maybe God has a different plan in mind that we would not necessarily understand in the moment. But church, don't miss this. Daniel committed himself to fasting, to prayer, and persevering in prayer until his breakthrough came. And so, church, I often ask myself, I wonder what would have happened if Daniel had quit praying too soon. We actually won't ever know the answer to that. It's a question that can't be answered. But what we do know is this. I do believe, personally, that there are times where we falter in prayer, and because of that, we miss the breakthrough that God has waiting for us, that we could have had if we would have pressed on and persevered. So, church, in closing in that way, I want to invite us to pray this. Lord, help me to keep praying until I receive the breakthrough that you have planned for me. Have a blessed day.